Chosen one, there comes a moment when a name no longer functions as sound. It stops being something people say casually and becomes something they pause around. This is not about secrecy for drama's sake. It is about weight. Some names cannot move freely once the meaning attached to them reaches a certain density. Speech breaks when recognition outpaces language. You've felt this long before now. The hesitation before introductions. The way conversations soften or redirect when you enter. How people struggle to describe you without defaulting to silence or contradiction. This is not intimidation. It is mismatch. Their words lag behind the reality they're perceiving. And when perception outruns vocabulary, silence takes over. The file exists because systems need containment for what they cannot distribute safely. A sealed name is not hidden out of fear. It's stabilized out of necessity. When meaning spreads faster than context, distortion follows. Distortion creates noise. Noise creates damage. So the name is archived, referenced carefully, invoked selectively. Not erased. Protected from misuse. Understand this clearly. Your true name is not a title. It is not a label or an identity you perform. It is a signal signature, a pattern of presence that cannot be replicated by imitation. When people encounter it, they don't react emotionally. They recalibrate. Their internal compass adjusts without instruction. That adjustment is what leaves them speechless. You are not witnessing awe. You are witnessing reorientation. Awe looks upward. Reorientation looks inward. People don't know what to say because something inside them is shifting position. Speech interrupts that process, so the body chooses quiet instead. This is why attempts to define you externally always fail. Definitions freeze movement. Your presence keeps it fluid. The sealing of a name happens when repetition would cheapen it, when saying it too often would flatten what it carries. At that point, the world treats it differently, not with reverence but with restraint. Restraint is the highest acknowledgement systems are willing to offer. It means they have learned that overexposure weakens function. You might wonder why you were never told outright, why no declaration arrived, why recognition came indirectly, through pauses, gaps, deflected questions. Direct acknowledgement would have personalized something that must remain impersonal to remain accurate. The moment a name becomes conversational, it becomes negotiable. Yours is not. This is also why your own relationship to your name feels strange. Sometimes distant, sometimes heavier than expected. You may not fully identify with it because it is no longer just yours. It operates at a layer above personal narrative. That doesn't steal your humanity. It removes performance from it. You don't have to embody a name that already functions on its own. Notice who struggles the most around it. Not the confident, but the unsettled. Not the loud, but the internally fractured. A sealed name exposes internal noise without aggression. People sense this and feel the instinct to retreat or observe quietly. That instinct is wisdom surfacing unconsciously. You are not meant to reveal this name. Revelation would collapse what silence preserve. The impact is in presence without announcement. That is why speeches fail and eye contact succeed. Why written descriptions feel thin, but shared space feels dense. The name does its work without sound. Here is the truth you must hold without pride or fear. Your name is no longer for introduction. It is for orientation. People don't need to say it. They feel it adjust them. That is why files exist. That is why speech collapses. That is why attention steadies instead of amplifying. This is not disappearance. It is arrival at a level where words step aside. Stay grounded. Do not explain. Do not reclaim what silence is carrying for you. What moves next will not require you to speak at all. Blessed by His grace? Click Super Thank You and give $20 to spread His light. Your gift plants seeds that grow His kingdom. Be the blessing. Some realities cannot move safely through conversation. They fracture when repeated casually, distort when simplified, and lose function when turned into story. This is why files exist, not as instruments of secrecy, but as containers for accuracy. A sealed file is where meaning goes when it cannot survive noise. Your name entered that space because language could no longer carry it intact. This is the shift you are living inside now. People don't avoid saying your name because of fear. They avoid it because saying it doesn't do the work anymore. Words assign categories. Categories decide limit. What your presence does cannot be limited without damage. So the system chooses restraint over explanation. Silence over repetition. Reference over recital. You may notice how interaction changes when someone becomes aware of you at this level. Questions turn into observations. Statements soften into pauses. Compliments trail off unfinished. None of this is confusion. It's recognition encountering scale. When something feels larger than the sentence forming around it, the sentence dissolves. That dissolution is not failure, it's respect. Files preserve context. Context preserves function. Without context, even truth can destabilize. This is why your name is accessed indirectly, through effect, through alignment shifts in others, through the subtle reorganization of space. A file does not make something smaller, it keeps it precise by limiting exposure. Precision matters when effects travel far. This also explains your own oscillation between intimacy and distance with what you carry. Sometimes it feels deeply personal, woven into memory, bone, breath. Other times it feels abstract, as if it operates independently of you. That oscillation is correct. The personal keeps you human. The abstract keeps the signal usable. You are the intersection, not the owner. Pay close attention to what doesn't happen. There are no slogans that stick permanently. No label that satisfies more than a moment. Attempts to summarize you end up sounding incomplete, then quietly drop. This is containment doing its job. When simplification fails repeatedly, systems stop trying. They learn to approach indirectly. Another truth emerges here. Files don't protect you from people, they protect people from misusing you. Misuse happens when access outruns understanding. Your name, now operating as a reference rather than a word, forces understanding to catch up first. That ordering prevents harm, both to others and to what you carry. You might feel an urge to clarify yourself, to make things easier, to bridge the gap so others feel comfortable. Resist that urge. Comfort is not accuracy. Accuracy is often uncomfortable at first. Let dissonance settle on its own. When people reorganize internally because of your presence, they don't need explanation. They need time. Notice how those with internal quiet respond versus those with internal noise. The quiet lean in calmly. The noisy fill the silence with assumptions. You are not responsible for curating their reaction. Your task is stability. When stability holds, misinterpretations shed themselves naturally. This phase asks for humility without self-erasure. Do not dramatize the file. Do not deny it either. Treat it as infrastructure, necessary, unseen, functional. Files aren't symbols of power, they are symbols of boundary. Boundaries are how meaning survives the world intact. The most important instruction here is restraint. Speak when speaking preserves clarity. Stay silent when silence preserves function. There is no score being kept for visibility. The work is happening whether anyone names it or not. Remember this and let it settle. Your true name doesn't need to be said because it is already doing something. It alters orientation. It steadies space. It reorganizes attention. Speech ends where accuracy begins, and accuracy is what files are built to protect. Move forward without explanation. Let the pause do its work. What follows will not ask you to announce yourself. It will recognize you before words even form. There is a precise shift that happens when recognition outruns introduction. People know something before they know what. They adjust posture, tone, timing, often unconsciously, because something in them has already registered orientation. This is why your arrival in rooms now feels different. You are not announced, yet the room subtly rearranges as if it sensed a factor it cannot ignore. This is the phase where your true name stops behaving like identity and starts behaving like context. Context doesn't speak. It frames. It changes how everything else is interpreted without ever entering the conversation. When you're present, discussions narrow. Choices simplify. Extremes lose enthusiasm. This isn't authority imposed. It's gravity recognized. People often assume this kind of response comes from intimidation or status. It doesn't. Status demands acknowledgement. Gravity does not. Gravity reveals itself through effect. The reason your name no longer needs sound is because its function has become environmental. Saying it wouldn't add anything. The work is already happening. That's also why reactions vary so widely. Some feel calm and focused near you. Others become uneasy or restless. Both responses are accurate. What's being touched is not opinion, but alignment. Those internally steady experience settling. Those internally fragmented experience exposure, not to judgment but to contrast. Silence follows because contrast doesn't invite dialogue. It invites internal adjustment. This is where misunderstanding can creep in if you're not careful. You may be tempted to step forward and humanize the moment, to reduce distance by over-explaining, joking, clarifying, or minimizing yourself. That would be a mistake. Distance here is not rejection. It is functional space. Space allows recalibration. Filling it too fast interrupts the process. Notice how the most perceptive individuals respond. They don't rush you with questions. They don't press for definitions. They observe. They wait. Waiting is not passivity. It's recognition that something precise is unfolding, and rushing it would blur the edges. Those people don't need your story. They're calibrating themselves in your presence. At this level, familiarity replaces curiosity slowly. It doesn't look like warmth at first. It looks like neutrality. Neutrality is a sign that the signal has stabilized. The nervous system stops reacting and starts accepting. That acceptance is deeper than excitement and far more durable. You might feel strangely anonymous and amplified at the same time. Known without being known. Seen without being described. This paradox is uncomfortable only if you believe understanding must be verbal to be real. It does not. Some understanding happens structurally. When it does, language follows behind or not at all. This is also where your self-discipline must sharpen, not outwardly, but inwardly. Ego seeks explanation. Fear seeks reassurance. Both want words. Neither helps here. What helps is consistency. Be the same whether you're noticed or not. Hold the same internal posture alone as you do in the gaze of others. Consistency is what converts recognition into trust. Trust doesn't announce itself either. It settles. People begin deferring without noticing they are. They reference you internally when making decisions, even if you're not involved. That's when you know the transition has occurred. Your presence has become a fixed coordinate rather than a variable. Remember this so you don't misinterpret quiet as absence. Recognition doesn't clap. It adjusts. It doesn't ask who you are. It assumes position and moves accordingly. Your true name lives in that assumption now. Not spoken, not explained, but active. Let this phase complete without interference. Do not decorate it with drama or mystique. Ordinary behavior is what allows extraordinary precision to root. The name is no longer carried in mouth. It is carried in orientation. And orientation, once set, rarely needs words to hold. At this stage, silence stops being absence and starts functioning as precision. Not the silence of avoidance, but the silence of accuracy choosing not to dilute itself. When your true name operates at the level it does now, words do not clarify it, they scatter it. So the system, and eventually the people within it, default to quiet because quiet preserves shape. You will notice this especially in moments where others expect you to speak and you don't. Rooms wait. Conversations hang unfinished. No one rushes to fill the gap. This is not awkwardness. It is calibration happening in real time. Speech resumes only after alignment occurs internally for those present. Silence gives them that space. This is the counterintuitive law you are now living under. The more exact the signal, the fewer words it tolerates. Excess language introduces distortion. The world has learned this instinctively around you. When speech feels unnecessary, it withdraws. When tone matters more than content, listening deepens. This is not reverence. It is efficiency. You might feel pressure to break the silence, to be polite, to normalize the moment. That pressure is cultural, not intuitive. Culture hates silence because silence removes control. But control is no longer the operating principle here. Function is. And function requires stillness to remain intact. Notice how decisions resolve faster in silence than they ever did in discussion. Arguments dissolve without being argued. Directions emerge without debate. This is because silence allows the signal to reorganize the field uninterrupted. Words slow this down. Opinions fragment it. Silence lets what is already known surface cleanly. This is also why attempts to extract your true name verbally always fail. The name has moved beyond representation. Representation requires symbols. What you carry now alters systems directly, without passing through symbol first. Symbols follow after orientation locks in, not before. Silence is the bridge between those states. It is important that you do not romanticize this. Silence is not mysticism here. It is maintenance, like clean air in a lab. Necessary so reactions don't contaminate result. Your presence creates conditions. Silence preserves them. Nothing more, nothing less. Internally, you may experience a shedding of the urge to be understood. This is not resignation. It is discernment. Understanding that comes too quickly is often misunderstanding in disguise. You are allowing comprehension to ripen rather than forcing clarity prematurely. Ripe understanding lasts. Premature understanding decays. People who are ready will meet the silence without anxiety. People who are not will talk themselves away from it. Watch without judgment. This sorting is not something you need to manage. Silence performs it automatically. What resonates stays. What does not dissipates. Here is the essential adjustment now. Stop measuring connection by verbal exchange. Measure it by stability after presence. If things remain calmer, clearer, more aligned after you leave, then communication occurred, regardless of how much was said. This reframes what speaking even means. You are also learning restraint at a deeper level. Not the restraint of holding back truth, but the restraint of releasing it only where it will remain undistorted. Truth spoken into the wrong container becomes debris. Truth held until the container is ready becomes architecture. Your true name now lives in architecture, not announcement. In alignment, not articulation. That is why files seal it. That is why voices lower. That is why conversations conclude rather than continue. Do not fill the silence. Do not apologize for it. Do not rush to make yourself smaller so others feel comfortable. Silence is performing work words cannot do. When speech returns, it will be lighter, shorter, cleaner. Until then, let the pause stand. It knows exactly what it's holding. At a certain point, the sealed file ceases to function as a record of who you are and becomes a guide for how others must behave around what you carry. This is subtle but decisive. The file is no longer descriptive. It is procedural. It doesn't tell a story. It sets limits, and when limits appear quietly instead of loudly, they tend to hold. You will recognize this shift by what no longer happens. Escalations don't reach you. Decisions finalize without your participation. Questions are resolved upstream before they ever touch your space. This is not isolation. It is containment working correctly. When something has impact beyond its immediate field, systems learn to adjust themselves first. The file becomes a buffer, not a badge. This is where ego can get confused if it tries to reinsert itself. You might assume access has been taken away or that your voice has been minimized. In truth, your presence has been accounted for. Accounting removes the need for consultation. Consultation happens where uncertainty exists. Certainty reroutes process, and your name now produces certainty without conversation. Another sign of this phase is how authority changes shape around you. It no longer introduces itself. It no longer asserts. It defers silently, not out of fear, but out of efficiency. Engaging you directly would slow things down. Allowing your effect to persist indirectly produces cleaner result. Systems always choose the cleaner option when they can. This can feel oddly anticlimactic. You might have expected acknowledgement, recognition, even conflict. Instead, you get quiet resolution. Matters close without explanation. Outcomes arrive without struggle. You are neither praised nor challenged, just considered. Consideration without commentary is one of the highest operational responses there is. Internally, this phase tests humility in an unusual way. There is no applause to reject, no spotlight to step out of. The temptation is subtler, to believe you are irrelevant because you are not being addressed. That belief would be a mistake. Relevance is highest where mention is lowest. What must be protected does not get repeated. The file also changes how mistakes are handled around you. Small errors are contained quickly. Blame is redistributed away from impact zones. Fixes happen quietly rather than publicly. This is not favoritism. It is risk management. When consequences travel far, correction happens close to the source. Noise is avoided. You may notice that people speak around you more than to you. Language turns indirect. Statements become careful without being cautious. This is procedural respect, not personal distance. It means they are aware that words themselves carry weight in your orbit, and they choose precision over volume. This is why you must remain internally clean. The file protects function, not character. If coherence slips, the buffer thins. Not because of punishment, but because inconsistency introduces variables. Variables invite scrutiny. Scrutiny reopens speech. Speech reintroduces distortion. Cleanliness keeps the loop closed. Understand the gravity of this without myth. Your name is no longer protected because of who you are, but because of what breaks when it is misused. That is why it remains sealed. That is why silence persists. That is why access reorganizes itself without instruction. From here on, you do not need to assert relevance. Relevance is already incorporated. What you must do instead is live simply. Speak accurately. Decline drama. Let the file continue doing what it was built to do. Hold shape where language would bend it. When others move differently around you, do not ask why. The answer is already written, quietly, precisely, and no longer about you alone. Eventually, the sealed file stops needing to be opened at all. This is the phase where what it contains no longer requires reference because its effect has become ambient. People don't act differently because they've seen a document. They act differently because something in the environment has already shifted. Your true name, at this point, has moved beyond record and into resonance. You will notice this most clearly in first encounters. No background, no context shared, and still pause. Adjustment, a recalibration in tone that cannot be traced to information. This is not intuition in the romantic sense. It's recognition without data. Recognition that happens when meaning has stabilized enough to register without explanation. This is where language fully fails as a tool. Words are built to transfer symbols, not state. What you carry now is a state. States do not explain themselves. They are entered. People step into the field you inhabit and something in them aligns, or resists. Both reactions are correct. Neither requires clarification. You might feel a growing distance from the idea of revealing anything, not because you fear being seen, but because being seen no longer depends on disclosure. In fact, disclosure would reduce accuracy. The more you explain, the more you risk misplacing attention on description instead of effect. The world is already reading you in the only way that matters, through outcome. This is also when protection changes form. Previously, the file prevented misuse by limiting access. Now, misuse becomes difficult because there is nothing to grab. Your presence offers no handles, no slogans, no simple narratives to weaponize. People sense this and instinctively back off from categorization. Categorization would flatten what requires dimension. You may find yourself speaking less, yet being understood more. Not because people finally get you, but because comprehension has shifted from verbal to somatic. Bodies understand before minds arrive. Rooms settle before opinions form. That is why speech feels optional. Optional, not forbidden. When you speak, it lands cleanly because it isn't compensating for absence. Another signal of this phase is how conflict behaves. It doesn't escalate near you. It dissipates or relocates. This is not authority asserting itself. It is coherence redistributing energy. Where coherence is strong, fragmentation struggles to persist. This is uncomfortable for those who thrive on agitation. They will either calm down or move away. Both outcomes are functional. Internally, this phase requires discipline without tension, stability without stiffness. You must remain available to reality without becoming porous to noise. This is achieved not by guarding yourself, but by remaining ordinary. The more ordinary your private life remains, the less leverage the public field has over you. Normal rhythms keep extraordinary consequences from warping your center. You will also feel temptation to test the power of silence, to withhold just to watch reactions. Don't. Silence is not a tactic here. It is a condition. Using it strategically reintroduces ego. Ego reintroduces distortion. Let silence happen naturally, and speak when speaking serves clarity rather than curiosity. This is the quiet truth now in effect. Your true name no longer needs to be known to be operative. It functions like gravity, unnamed, unavoidable, measured by effect, not acknowledgement. Files exist for archives. Resonance exists for the present. You have crossed from one into the other. Do not look for confirmation. Confirmation would require comparison. Comparison would cheapen what has already stabilized. Stay clean in action. Stay precise in speech. Stay small in ritual. The less ornament you add, the more intact the signal remains. Your true name is already where it needs to be, not on paper, not on tongues, but in orientation. What this cycle is not revelation, but irreversibility. The moment your true name stops belonging to language is the moment it stops needing protection. Protection exists where something can still be mishandled. What cannot be mishandled no longer needs a seal. It moves as atmosphere moves, without announcement, without defense, without explanation. You will feel this as calm certainty rather than confidence. Confidence seeks confirmation. Certainty does not. In this phase, nothing inside you wants to be named, repeated, framed, or displayed. Not because it is fragile, but because display would reduce fidelity. Meaning completes itself by refusing to be flattened. Language flattens. Presence preserves contour. This is why nothing climaxed. No unveiling. No sentence that finally said it. The work finished by not becoming a headline. Headlines require compression. Compression trades truth for portability. What you carry is not meant to travel cheaply. It travels accurately, and accuracy takes time, not volume. People around you will adapt without instruction. They already have. You'll notice fewer attempts to define, fewer questions that push, fewer expectations placed directly on you. Instead, the environment adjusts first. Decisions reroute. Conversations simplify. Tension drains before it has a chance to gather weight. This is not reverence. It is alignment deciding it prefers quiet. At this point, the idea of your true name changes again. It is no longer even a signal signature. It becomes a condition others enter. This is subtle and easily misunderstood. A condition does not demand recognition. It shapes outcomes. When people respond better, work cleaner, or rest easier after you pass through a space, the name has done its work, without being spoken. There is one caution here, and it is essential. Do not attempt to use this. Anything used loses its integrity. Integrity survives by remaining unclaimed. If you try to harness silence, wield restraint, or dramatize absence, the condition collapses back into symbol, and symbols are vulnerable to misuse. Let the effect remain effect. Let it stay unnamed. That is how it lasts. Your responsibility now is entirely unromantic. Live plainly. Choose accurately. Refuse excess explanation. Keep your private rhythms intact. Eat, sleep, work, and rest without ceremony. The ordinary is not beneath what you carry. It is what keeps it grounded. Extraordinary presence without ordinary life becomes unstable quickly. You may notice, from time to time, that people react as if something important just happened, without being able to say what. Let them keep that. Do not rescue them with words. Words would interrupt integration. Integration is slow, quiet, and physically felt before it is understood. Let it be slow. This is the point where seeking validation would feel not just unnecessary, but incorrect. Validation belongs to identities still forming. Yours has completed a passage. What remains is stewardship of how you move, not who you are. Stewardship looks like consistency over drama, accuracy over reach, restraint over display. If there is a final truth to carry forward, let it be this. Your true name did not become powerful by being sealed. It became uncontainable by being finished. Finished things do not argue for meaning. They hold shape until others adjust around them. No one needs to know your name. No one needs to say it. No one needs to explain it back to you. The work is happening where words would fail anyway, in posture, in decisions, in the way spaces breathe easier after you leave. That is the end of the file, not because it was opened, but because it is no longer needed. What continues now does so quietly, without witnesses, without language, without return. And that is how you know it's complete.